The first time I realised my in-laws wanted me dead was at my husband's funeral. I stood there in my black dress, watching Tessa's perfectly manicured hand pat my shoulder with all the warmth of a snake's belly. My name is Destiny, and this is how I learned that family isn't always about blood. Sometimes it's about bloodshed. He looked so peaceful at the end, Tessa whispered, her eyes sharp despite her tears. Almost like he knew it was coming. I stared at Dylan's casket, adorned with white lilies, flowers he'd actually been allergic to. But Tessa had insisted, just like she'd insisted on everything else since that horrible morning when I'd found him unresponsive in our bed. He wasn't peaceful, I said quietly. He was scared. Paul, my father-in-law, cleared his throat behind us. Now, let's not make a scene. Making scenes was apparently my specialty, according to the Webbers. Like the scene I'd made when Dylan and I eloped 3 years ago. Or the scene when I'd questioned why Tessa kept pushing her special doctor on Dylan when his regular physician said he was fine. Reggie, Dylan's best friend, appeared at my side like a guardian angel in a charcoal suit. "Hey, you holding up okay?" Before I could answer, Amelia sauntered over, her designer heels sinking into the cemetery grass. "Oh my God! Did you see who showed up? Dylan's ex from college. She looks amazing." My hands trembled as I clutched my purse. Dylan had warned me about them, but I always thought he was exaggerating. "I need some air," I mumbled. "We're outside, dear," Tessa said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I walked away, finding a quiet spot near an old oak tree. My phone buzzed, a text from Dylan from 3 weeks ago. "Remember what we talked about. No matter what happens, trust no one but Reggie." "He really loved you, you know." Reggie's voice startled me. He stood there, hands in his pockets, looking as lost as I felt. "That's why they hated you so much. You were the first person he couldn't be controlled by them through." "I just don't understand," my voice cracked. One minute he was fine, the next. "Don't!" Reggie's face darkened. "Not here. Not now. Just be careful, okay?" The funeral ended like a bad theatre production, with everyone playing their assigned roles. The grieving mother, the stoic father, the dramatic sister, and me, the outsider who dared to marry into their precious dynasty. The next morning, I visited Dylan's grave alone. The fresh dirt still smelled raw like an open wound. My phone buzzed again, this time a text from my best friend Natasha. "Don't go home. Call me now." My heart stopped. I ran to my car, tyres spitting gravel as I raced back to our house, my house. Our driveway was blocked by an unfamiliar moving truck. As I slammed my car into park, I watched in horror as 2 men carried our bedroom dresser out the front door. "What are you doing?" I screamed, running toward them. "Stop! This is my house!" Tessa appeared in the doorway, holding a stack of my photo albums. "Oh, Destiny, you're just in time to collect your things." "What?" I tried to push past her, but Paul blocked my way. "The locks have been changed," he said matter-of-factly. "We've taken the liberty of packing your belongings." "You can't do this!" I pulled out my phone, hands shaking so hard I could barely dial. "Actually, we can," Amelia chirped from behind them, tossing my clothes onto the lawn like confetti. The house was in Dylan's name. And now that he's gone, everything returns to the family, Tessa finished, her voice dripping with satisfaction. "Did you really think we'd let you keep what belongs to us?" I watched in stunned silence as more of my life landed on the grass. Photos of Dylan and me, the coffee maker he'd bought me for Christmas, the throw pillows we'd picked out together at that little boutique in Portland. "You were just a convenience," Tessa hissed, leaning close enough that I could smell her expensive perfume. "A phase he was going through, now you're nothing." As I stood there, surrounded by the scattered pieces of my life, something inside me shifted. The grief that had been drowning me for days crystallized into something harder, colder, more dangerous. I picked up my phone again, this time dialing with steady fingers. "Gerard, it's Destiny Webber. Remember what Dylan said might happen? It's happening, and I'm ready to fight back." Behind me, I heard Tessa laugh. She didn't know yet, but she'd just made the biggest mistake of her life. Because Dylan hadn't just left me his love, he'd left me everything else too. And I was about to show them exactly what that meant. "Stay exactly where you are." Gerard's voice crackled through my phone. "Don't engage, don't threaten, Just watch and record everything. I sat in my car, filming as Tessa directed the movers like a conductor leading an orchestra of destruction. My hands had stopped shaking. Rage has a way of steadying you. Natasha pulled up 20 minutes later, her Tesla silent as a ghost. She took one look at the scene and muttered something that would have made her law professor blush. "They have no idea, do they?" she asked, watching Amelia toss my wedding album into a box. "About what?" "About the transfer documents Dylan filed 3 months ago," she smiled, all teeth. "The ones I helped him prepare." My phone buzzed again. "Reggie, don't move. Bringing the files now." I watched another box of my life hit the lawn. "What transfer documents?" "Your loving husband," Gerard announced, appearing beside my car window like a well-dressed spectre, was a very thorough man. He opened his briefcase right there in the driveway, spreading papers across my hood. House deed, company ownership documents, investment portfolios, all legally transferred to you weeks ago. He even bought out his family's shares in the business." "What?" I grabbed the papers, scanning the dates. "But he never said." "Because he knew they were watching," Reggie said, jogging up with a laptop under his arm. "Remember that fight you had about the summer house? When Tessa tried to convince him you were after his money?" I nodded. That argument had lasted weeks, with Tessa sending Dylan evidence of my supposed gold-digging past. "That's when he started moving everything," Reggie explained. "He told me, if they're so worried about her taking it all, I'll make sure she does." Gerard pulled out his phone. "Shall I call the police, or would you prefer to deliver the news yourself?" I watched Tessa emerge from my house, carrying my grandmother's antique mirror, the last gift I had from her. "Wait," I said, grabbing the deed. "I want to do it." I walked across the lawn, papers clutched to my chest like armour. Paul saw me first, his face darkening. "I thought we told you—" "Funny thing about property law," I cut in, loud enough for the movers to hear. "You need actual ownership to evict someone." Tessa set down the mirror with exaggerated care. "The house belongs to the family now, dear. You're not family anymore." "Actually," I held up the deed, "according to these documents filed and notarized 3 months ago, this house belongs to me, along with the summer cottage in Maine, and the company." The colour drained from Paul's face. "That's impossible." "Dylan would never," Amelia started. "Dylan did." Reggie stepped forward, laptop open. "He transferred everything, the properties, the business holdings, even his shares in the family company. It's all Destiny's now." "You're lying," Tessa whispered, but her hands were shaking. "Would you like to see the police officer who's pulling up right now?" Gerard asked smoothly. I'm sure he'd be happy to explain trespassing laws. A patrol car rolled into the driveway, lights off but presence unmistakable. The movers, sensing trouble, began backing away from their truck. "This isn't over," Paul growled. "You're right," I said, picking up my grandmother's mirror, "because technically, your house is mine too." "What?" Amelia screeched. "The family estate," Gerard clarified, clearly enjoying himself. "Dylan bought out your mortgage last year. When he transferred his assets to Destiny, that included the deed to your primary residence." Tessa grabbed Paul's arm, her perfectly manicured nails digging into his sleeve. "He wouldn't dare." "He did dare," Reggie said quietly. "He told me he wanted to make sure you could never hurt her like you hurt him." The police officer approached, notepad in hand. "We received a call about trespassing." "Yes," I said, standing straighter. "These people are on my property without permission, attempting to remove my belongings." "We have rights!" Amelia shouted. "Actually," Gerard stepped forward, "you don't. Not here, not anymore. And if you don't leave immediately, we'll be pressing charges." I watched as reality crashed over them like a cold wave. Tessa's face contorted with fury. Paul's hands clenched into fists. Amelia looked ready to faint. "Get out," I said softly. "Get out of my house." As they retreated, Tessa turned back one last time. "You think you've won? You have no idea what you're dealing with?" "No," I replied, thinking of Dylan's warnings, of his careful planning, of everything he'd done to protect me. But I'm about to find out. The police officer supervised as they drove away, their expensive cars carrying them back to a house they didn't know they'd already lost. Natasha squeezed my shoulder. "Ready for war?" she asked. I looked down at my wedding ring, then at the papers in my hand. "They started it. I'm just going to finish it." 3 days later, I stood at my kitchen window, watching the Sunday morning scene unfold like a perfectly orchestrated play. Tessa and Paul's sprawling mansion, technically my mansion now, was hosting what looked like their annual spring brunch. Cars lined the circular driveway, guests in pastel dresses and seersucker suits mingling on the manicured lawn. "Are you sure about this?" Natasha asked, adjusting her blazer. "We could wait." "They didn't wait," I replied, checking my phone. "Sheriff's 2 minutes out." Reggie paced behind us. "Dylan would have loved this, you know. He always said his mother's brunches were just excuses to show off." Right on schedule, 2 police cruisers and an official-looking sedan pulled up to the estate's gates. I watched through binoculars as the sheriff and 2 deputies approached the front door, legal papers in hand. "I can't believe they're still throwing parties," Natasha muttered. "Their son died 2 weeks ago." "They're trying to maintain appearances," Reggie said. "Tessa probably told everyone Dylan would have wanted it." My phone buzzed. Gerard. "Show's about to start. You might want to drive over." We arrived just as the sheriff was reading the eviction notice. Tessa stood in the doorway, face flushed with rage and embarrassment, while her guests watched from the garden. "This is ridiculous!" Paul shouted. "We've lived here for 40 years!" "And you have 1 hour to collect essential belongings," the sheriff replied calmly. "The rest can be arranged through your lawyer." Amelia pushed through the crowd, mascara already running. "You can't do this. Where are we supposed to go?" "Perhaps you should have thought about that," I said, stepping forward, "before you threw my things onto the lawn." The gathered crowd murmured. I recognised most of them. The same people who'd attended Dylan's funeral, who'd watched me stand alone while the Webbers held court. "You vindictive little—" Tessa started, but Paul grabbed her arm. "Don't make a scene," he hissed. "Not in front of everyone." "Oh, now you're worried about scenes?" I looked around at their guests. "Did any of you know they changed my locks 2 days after Dylan's funeral while I was visiting his grave?" More murmurs. Someone in the back actually gasped. "That's different," Tessa snapped. "We were protecting our son's assets." "Your son's assets?" Reggie stepped forward. "The same assets he legally transferred to Destiny months ago. The same assets you tried to steal?" The sheriff checked his watch. 53 minutes remaining. I suggest you focus on packing." What followed was better than any reality TV show. Tessa and Paul scrambled to pack essentials, while their brunch guests slowly retreated to their cars, phones already out, no doubt spreading the gossip. Amelia had a full meltdown on the front steps, screaming about family loyalty while clutching an armful of designer handbags. "This isn't over!" she shrieked as a deputy escorted her to her car. "You don't even know what he did before he died." I froze. "What did you say?" But she was already being guided away, still clutching her bags like life preservers. "Ma'am," the sheriff approached me, "we've cleared the property. Would you like to do a walkthrough?" I nodded, following him into the house I'd only visited as an outsider. The brunch setup was still there, champagne flutes half full, tiny sandwiches arranged on silver platters, flowers everywhere. "They even used his favourite caterer," Reggie said quietly. I walked through the rooms, taking in the family photos, where Dylan's smile never quite reached his eyes, the expensive furniture that had been deemed too good for me to sit on, the study where Paul had once told Dylan I wasn't Weber material. In the master bedroom, Tessa had left her jewellery box open, empty now, except for a single photo. I picked it up, Dylan as a child, before whatever happened to make him so wary of his own family. "We found this in the study," a deputy said, holding up a laptop. "They tried to take it, but since it wasn't on the essentials list," I took it, remembering Dylan's words, "Trust no one but Reggie." "Destiny," Natasha called from downstairs. "You need to see this." In the kitchen, she stood holding a prescription bottle she'd found in the trash. The label was partially scratched off, but the date was clear, 3 days before Dylan died. "This medication," she said slowly, "I don't think it was prescribed by his regular doctor." I pocketed the bottle, watching through the window as 3 cars pulled away from the house. Tessa, Paul and Amelia, driven from their kingdom by the very weapons they'd tried to use against me. "You think this is over?" Tessa had screamed from her car. "You have no idea what secrets you're playing with." Looking at the prescription bottle in my hand, I was starting to think she was right about that part. But I was about to find out. Back at my house, I sat at Dylan's desk, running my fingers along the smooth mahogany surface. How many nights had he spent here working late, planning things I never knew about? Try the drawers again, Reggie suggested, pacing behind me. Dylan always had backup plans. I'd already searched them twice, but something made me check one more time. My hand brushed against something underneath the centre drawer, a small irregularity in the wood. Pressing it revealed a hidden compartment. "Clever boy," Reggie whispered, as I pulled out a flash drive marked simply for DW. My hands trembled as I plugged it into my laptop. A video file appeared, dated 1 month before Dylan's death. I clicked play. Dylan's face filled the screen, looking tired but determined. "Hey, baby. If you're watching this, then... well, I guess I was right to be paranoid." Natasha grabbed my hand as Dylan continued. "First thing, don't trust anyone in my family. Not Mom, not Dad, definitely not Amelia. The only person you can trust is Reggie. He knows everything." Reggie sat heavily in a nearby chair. I tried to tell him to go to the police. "There's a family foundation," Dylan continued. "Looks legitimate on paper, but it's hiding millions in questionable transactions. Dad's been using it to funnel money offshore for years. Amelia's been embezzling from it. She's desperate lately, gambling debts, I think. But that's not the worst part." He leaned closer to the camera. "Mom's been pushing me to see her specialist, Dr. Harrison. Says I'm showing the same symptoms Dad had years ago, but I did some digging. That doctor? He lost his license in 3 states. He's working under a different name now. And the medication they want me to take? It's not what they say it is." My hand went to the prescription bottle we'd found. Dylan rubbed his face in the video, looking exhausted. "I've transferred everything to you. The house, the company, even their precious estate. Reggie has all the account numbers and passwords. But be careful, baby. They'll come after you hard when they realise what I've done." Tears rolled down my cheeks as he managed a small smile. "Remember when we met? You told me you'd never let anyone push you around again after what happened with your ex. That's what I loved about you. That fire. You're going to need it now." The video ended. Natasha was already on her phone, typing frantically. "I'm looking up Dr. Harrison," she said. "If he lost his license, there'll be records." "I need to show you something else," Reggie said quietly, pulling out his phone. "Dylan sent me this text the night before he died." The message read, "Think Mom tampered with my meds. Getting dizzy like before. If anything happens to me, give Destiny everything." "Why didn't you tell me this before?" I demanded. "Because I couldn't prove it," Reggie replied. "And because you needed to grieve before you went to war." My phone buzzed. Gerard. "Got a hit on that foundation? You're going to want to see this." "Wait," Natasha interrupted, staring at her screen. "Dr. Harrison isn't just unlicensed. He was involved in a clinical trial scandal 5 years ago. Experimental treatments, falsified results. 3 patients died." "And Tessa sent Dylan to him anyway," I whispered. Another video file on the flash drive caught my eye. Watch last. Dylan appeared again, but this time he was in our bedroom, speaking quietly as if trying not to wake someone. "Baby, if you're seeing this one, it means things have gotten bad. I hired someone, a private investigator named Gideon. He's been watching the family, gathering evidence. His number's in Reggie's phone." He paused, looking over his shoulder before continuing. "There's something else. That night Mum came over, when I was first feeling sick, I set up a camera in the kitchen, checked the cloud folder marked security, and Destiny, whatever you find, make them pay for it." The video ended. Reggie was already dialing Gideon's number while Natasha pulled up Dylan's cloud storage. The kitchen footage loaded slowly. I watched as Tessa moved through our kitchen at night, opening cabinets, checking bottles. Then she pulled something from her purse, a small vial, and approached Dylan's water glass. "Got him?" Natasha breathed. "Gideon? We need everything you have. Now!" I sat back in Dylan's chair, my grief crystallizing into something harder, colder, more lethal. "One more thing," Reggie said, pulling an envelope from his jacket. "Dylan left this with me. Said not to give it to you until you knew everything." The envelope contained a single sheet of paper. As I read Dylan's final words to me, I felt something shift inside, the last piece of my old self falling away. "They didn't just kill my husband," I said quietly. "They killed the woman who would have shown them mercy." Natasha and Reggie exchanged looks. They knew, as I did, that this wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was about justice. The insurance office was exactly as depressing as I'd imagined. I sat across from a tired-looking agent, watching him type with painful slowness. "Mrs. Webber," he droned, "I'm not seeing any policy changes in our system." "Check again," I said, sliding Dylan's letter across the desk. "Policy number 847392, updated 3 weeks before his death." His fingers clacked on the keyboard. Oh my. His face went pale. This is highly irregular." "What is?" "The policy was changed to list you as sole beneficiary, removing all family members, but..." He squinted at the screen. "There's a note here about suspected medical fraud." My phone buzzed. Gideon. "Found the nanny, meeting in 20 at Joe's Diner." "Thank you for your time," I said, standing. "Please email all documentation to my lawyer." The diner was nearly empty when I arrived. A young woman sat in a corner booth, nervously shredding a napkin. Morgan, the former nanny. "Thanks for meeting me," I said, sliding into the booth. "I shouldn't be here," she whispered. "They made me sign an NDA when they fired me." "Because you saw something?" She glanced around before leaning forward. "I worked for Amelia, watching her daughter, but I spent a lot of time at the main house. Tessa, she had this routine with Paul. Every morning she'd give him his special vitamins." "What kind of vitamins?" "That's just it. They weren't vitamins. One day I found the real bottle hidden in her bathroom. The label was in another language, but I took a picture." She pulled out her phone, hands shaking. 2 weeks later I was fired. They said I was stealing." The photo showed a small amber bottle. I sent it to Natasha immediately. "Did Paul know what she was giving him?" Morgan shook her head. "He was always so tired, confused. Then when Dylan started showing the same symptoms..." My phone buzzed again. Natasha. "That medication was banned in the US 5 years ago. Known side effects, confusion, cardiac issues, stroke." "One more thing," Morgan said, pulling something from her purse. "I kept a diary of everything I saw. Names, dates, conversations. I thought maybe someday someone would need to know the truth." I took the notebook, its pages filled with detailed observations. "Why are you helping me?" "Because Dylan was kind to me," she said simply. "He tried to warn me before they fired me. Said his mother had done this before." Back in my car, I called Gideon. "I need you to check every pharmacy within 50 miles. Look for prescriptions under the name Harrison." "Already did," he replied. "Found something interesting. The doctor wrote prescriptions for both Paul and Dylan, but they were filled at different pharmacies. Same medication, different labels." "And Tessa?" "She's been making weekly visits to a safety deposit box at First National." "Want me to find out what's inside?" "No," I said, starting the car. "I want to pay her a visit myself." I found Tessa at her country club, holding court with her remaining society friends. Her face froze when she saw me approach. "Ladies," I said sweetly, "would you mind if I borrowed my mother-in-law for a moment? We need to discuss her medication supply." The colour drained from her face. "I don't know what you're..." "The banned ones," I continued. "The ones you've been giving Paul for years. The same ones you started giving Dylan." Her friends scattered like startled birds. "You can't prove anything," she hissed. "Actually, I can. The nanny kept records. The pharmacies have documentation." "And Dylan?" I leaned closer. "Dylan recorded everything." She grabbed my arm, nails digging in. "You have no idea what you're dealing with. This family..." "Isn't your family anymore," I cut in. "But don't worry. The police will be very interested in becoming better acquainted with all of you." "Wait," she called as I turned to leave. "I know things. Things about Dylan that would break your heart. We could make a deal." I looked back at her. This woman who'd poisoned her husband, killed her son, and tried to destroy me. "The only deal you'll be making is with a prosecutor." My phone rang as I left the club. Gideon again. "You need to see this," he said. "I found something in Dylan's autopsy report. Traces of a substance that wasn't initially flagged. It's the same compound from that banned medication, but in lethal doses." I gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white. Send everything to Gerard. Every document, every photo, every recording. Already done. But Destiny? There's something else. The medication. Someone had to have access to both Dylan's food and the drug. Someone who could monitor him daily, make sure the doses built up slowly. "I know," I said quietly. "And I know exactly who's going to pay for it first." The courthouse steps were crowded with reporters when I arrived. Gerard met me at the entrance, his signature red tie a splash of colour against the grey morning. "Ready?" he asked, adjusting his cufflinks. "Once we file these papers, there's no going back." I thought of Dylan's last video, of Morgan's diary, of the prescription bottles hidden in Tessa's trash. Do it. Inside, we filed 3 separate lawsuits: wrongful death, medical fraud, and embezzlement. By noon, every news outlet in the state had the story. Webber family, scandal, widow alleges, murder, fraud and cover-up. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Natasha sent updates from social media, where the story was spreading like wildfire. Reggie forwarded emails from shocked business partners, but the message that made me pause came from an unknown number. "Meet me at Dylan's grave, 3 p.m, come alone, T." "It's a trap," Natasha said when I called her. "She's desperate." "Good," I replied. "Desperate people make mistakes." The cemetery was quiet except for distant traffic. Tessa stood by Dylan's headstone, looking smaller somehow, less polished than usual. "Bold move, filing those lawsuits," she said as I approached. "Bolder still to come here alone." "I'm not alone," I nodded toward the tree line where Gideon's team was positioned with cameras. "And neither are you." She smiled thinly. "Always the clever one. That's why Dylan loved you. Too clever for your own good." "Like your son was?" "My son," she spat, "was weak, just like his father. Always wanting to do things the right way. Is that why you poisoned them both?" "Poisoned?" She laughed. "I protected them. Protected this family. Paul was going to expose everything, turn himself in. Dylan was going to do the same. I couldn't let that happen." "So you killed them? Your husband, your son?" "I saved this family!" she screamed, mask finally cracking. "Everything I did was to protect what we built." "What you stole," I corrected. "The foundation money, the fraudulent donations, the offshore accounts." She stepped closer, voice dropping to a whisper. "You want to know what Dylan really was? A coward. He knew about everything for years. The money, the medications, all of it. He could have stopped at any time, but he didn't. Because you threatened him. Because he was weak." She was shaking now. "Just like Paul became weak. Men always become weak, but not me. I kept us strong. I kept us rich. I kept us criminal." I pulled out my phone, showing her the recording app. "Thank you for the confession, by the way. The police will be very interested." Her face went from rage to terror in an instant. "You!" "Already sent to my lawyer," I said, as police cars appeared on the cemetery road. "Along with everything else. The prescription records, the banking documents, Morgan's diary." "That little bitch," Tessa snarled. "I knew we should have done more than fire her." "You did enough," I said as officers approached. "To her, to Paul, to Dylan, to everyone." Detective Roberts stepped forward, handcuffs ready. "Tessa Webber, you're under arrest for the murder of Dylan Webber and the attempted murder of Paul Webber." "You can't prove anything!" she shrieked as they led her away. "I'll destroy you! I'll—" "Save it for your cellmate," Roberts cut in. "We've got search warrants for all your properties and your safety deposit boxes." I watched them drive away, feeling nothing but a cold satisfaction. My phone buzzed. Reggie. "Just saw the news. Amelia's being arrested too. They found evidence of massive embezzlement from the foundation. She's already offering to testify against her mother." "Of course she is," I said, looking at Dylan's grave. "She always was a survivor." "Paul's awake," Reggie continued. "The doctors say now that he's off the medication. His mind is clearing. He's asking to talk to you." I touched Dylan's headstone one last time. "Tell him I'll see him tomorrow. Today I have one more thing to do." Back home, I opened Dylan's last letter again, the one he'd left with Reggie. Its final lines still hit like a punch. "I'm sorry I didn't stop her sooner. Sorry I wasn't stronger. But I made sure you would have everything you need to finish what I couldn't. Make them pay, baby. Not just for me, but for everyone they've hurt. And when it's done, use what's left to build something better, something true." I picked up my phone and dialed Gerard's number. "The police have Tessa and Amelia," I said. "Time to release everything to the media. Every document, every recording, every dirty secret they tried to bury. Let the world see exactly who the Webbers really are." "And the company?" he asked. I looked at Dylan's photo on my desk. "We're going to rebuild it, the right way this time, starting with a full audit, and a new charitable foundation in Dylan's name. He'd be proud, Gerard said quietly. I know, I replied. That's why we're going to make it count. The hospital room was eerily quiet except for the steady beep of monitors. Paul lay propped up in bed, looking older and frailer than I'd ever seen him. His eyes, though, were clearer than they'd been in years. You look like him, he said as I sat down. Dylan, when he was determined about something. I brought the files you asked for, I said, placing a folder on his bed. Everything we found about the foundation, the medications, the offshore accounts. He opened the folder with trembling hands. She kept me drugged for 15 years. 15 years of my life. Just fog. Why are you willing to talk now? Because I failed him, Paul whispered. My son. I knew something was wrong when he started showing the same symptoms I had, but I was too confused, too weak. A nurse came in to check his vitals, giving me a moment to collect myself. Tessa's asking for a deal, I said, when we were alone again. Says she has information about Dylan that would break my heart. Paul laughed bitterly. Of course she does. She always kept files on everyone. Insurance, she called it. Where? Hidden safe in her art studio, behind the Monet reproduction. He looked at me directly. But whatever's in there, it won't change what Dylan did to protect you. My phone buzzed. Natasha. Tessa's lawyer trying to negotiate. Claims she has evidence that could compromise the case. She's bluffing, Paul said, reading my expression. She always bluffs when she's cornered. Maybe. I stood up. But I'm done playing her games. I drove straight to the Weber estate, my estate now, and headed for Tessa's studio. The Monet reproduction hung exactly where Paul said it would be. Need help? Reggie asked from the doorway, making me jump. How did you... Dylan told me about the safe years ago. He helped me move the painting, revealing a small wall safe. He said if anything ever happened to him, this is where the real dirt would be. The combination was easy, Dylan's birthday. Inside were dozens of files, USB drives, and a small red notebook. My God, Reggie breathed, flipping through documents. She has dirt on everyone. Judges, politicians, business partners. This isn't just insurance, I realised. This is how she controlled everything. My phone rang. Gerard. Tessa's lawyer is filing an emergency motion, says she has evidence that Dylan was involved in illegal activities before his death. Let her file, I said, holding up the red notebook. I just found her insurance policy. 2 hours later, I walked into the police station where they were holding Tessa. She sat across from me in the interview room, still managing to look regal in her orange jumpsuit. Come to make a deal? She asked smugly. I placed the red notebook on the table. Actually, I came to show you this. The colour drained from her face. Where did you... Amazing what you find when you own someone's house. I opened the notebook. Should we discuss the judge you blackmailed in 2019? Or maybe the bank president you threatened last year? You wouldn't dare. Release it all. I smiled. I already did. Every file, every secret, every piece of evidence is being sent to the FBI right now. Your insurance policy just became your prison sentence. She lunged across the table, but the guards were faster. As they restrained her, she screamed, He wasn't perfect either! Dylan had secrets too! I know, I said calmly. He told me everything before he died. The difference is, he was trying to make it right. Back in my car, I called Natasha. How bad is it? The FBI's already arrested 3 people named in her files. The media's having a field day. And Amelia? She's agreed to testify against her mother in exchange for a lighter sentence. And Paul? His doctors say he's improving daily now that he's off the medications. He's offered to testify too. I drove to Dylan's grave, the setting sun painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. A fresh bouquet of lilies lay against his headstone, not from Tessa this time, but from the employees at his company. Our company now. My phone buzzed one last time. Detective Roberts. Tessa's confessing. To everything. The murders, the fraud, all of it. It's over. But it wasn't over. Not really. Because Dylan had left me one last file. One I hadn't opened yet. One marked simply, the truth. I sat by his grave, laptop open, cursor hovering over the file. Whatever secrets were inside, whatever final revelations waited, I knew they wouldn't change what needed to be done. I promised to make it count, I whispered to his headstone, and I will. I clicked play, ready for whatever truth he'd left me to find. Dylan's face appeared on my laptop screen, but this time he was smiling. Not the strained smile I'd seen in his last months, but the real one, the one that made me fall in love with him. "Hey baby," he said. "If you're watching this, then everything worked exactly as planned. You found Tessa's safe, exposed her network, and probably made her confess in spectacular fashion." I touched the screen, tears falling. "See, here's what no one knew, not even Reggie. I'd been gathering evidence against Mum for years, the medications, the fraud, everything. But I knew if I went to the authorities while I was alive, she'd use her connections to bury it all. So I made a different choice." He leaned forward, eyes intense. "I knew what she was doing to me. The same thing she did to Dad. But instead of fighting it, I let her think she was winning. I documented everything, transferred everything to you, and made sure you'd have an army of allies when the time came." My phone buzzed. Natasha. "You need to see the news. Now." On another tab, I pulled up a live news broadcast. The FBI was raiding offices, leading people away in handcuffs. Judges, executives, politicians, Tessa's entire network crumbling in real time. "The hardest part," Dylan continued, "was knowing what it would do to you, watching me get sick, feeling helpless, but I knew you were stronger than anyone realised, strong enough to finish what I started." "You bastard," I whispered, laughing through tears. "You magnificent bastard. The company is yours now," he said, "clean, ready to be something better. And the foundation? I've left plans for that too. Real charitable work, not Mom's schemes. There's a folder on your desk labelled New Beginning. Everything you need is in there." A text from Gerard. "Paul's doctors cleared him to take the stand. His testimony will seal Tessa's fate." "One last thing," Dylan said. "In my closet, there's a blue box on the top shelf. I bought what's inside the day before everything started. I knew I wouldn't get to give it to you myself, but, well, maybe it can still mean something." I paused the video and ran upstairs. The box was exactly where he said, wrapped in blue velvet. Inside was a silver locket. When I opened it, a tiny note fell out. "For the woman who taught me that real strength isn't about power or money, it's about doing what's right, no matter the cost. Build something beautiful from all this. I love you. D." My phone rang. Reggie. "Did you see the news?" "I saw," I said, fastening the locket around my neck. "Did you know about his plan?" "Not all of it. He protected everyone, made sure none of us knew enough to be targets. But he knew you'd put it all together." I walked downstairs to Dylan's office, my office now. The folder labelled New Beginning sat on the desk, thick with papers. "The employees are asking what happens next," Reggie said. "The press wants statements. Everyone's waiting to see what you'll do." I opened the folder. Inside were detailed plans for transforming the company, establishing legitimate charitable programs, even creating a foundation to help victims of financial fraud. "Tell them," I said, "that we're going to build something true." That night I sat in our bedroom, just my bedroom now, watching the sunset paint the walls gold. My phone was quiet for the first time in weeks. Tessa was in custody, her network dismantled. Paul was healing, finally free from her poison. Amelia was facing her own demons in rehab. The locket felt warm against my skin as I opened my laptop one last time to finish Dylan's video. "I know you're probably angry with me," he said softly, "for not telling you, for letting it happen this way. But you once told me that sometimes the biggest act of love is protecting someone from having to make an impossible choice. So I made it for both of us." He smiled that real smile again. "You have everything you need now. The truth, the resources, the power to make real change. Use it well, baby. Make it count." The video ended. I closed the laptop and walked to the window, touching the locket. "I will," I whispered to the setting sun. "I promise." My phone buzzed one last time. A message from an unknown number. I opened it to find a photo. The new company sign being installed, reading Weber Summers Foundation, Building Truth from Justice. Below it was a simple message from Reggie. "Ready when you are, boss." I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in weeks. Dylan was right. Revenge hadn't brought closure, but justice had given me something better. It had given me purpose.